Changes. But thank you all very much for taking the time to be here. And as Chief Gascon promised, we were going to keep you abreast of our changing crime statistics on a quarterly basis. Of course, as you know, with new CompStat model of policing, we do that more often, and technology and data is really driving so much of our deployment and strategies in terms of crime fighting and crime prevention in our city. Good news is we were audacious in our goal setting earlier this year. We had some stretch goals. We raised the bar in terms of our expectation. We came into the year with among the lowest homicide rates we had seen in a generation. In fact, until the early 1960s, we had not seen homicide rates as low as they were last year. There were some that felt it was inappropriate to set the goal of continuing that trend downward in terms of the homicide rates in particular, since last year some had suggested was an anomaly. We felt differently, not only in terms of the goal setting, but we felt that last year was an extension of a trend that we saw occurring in the middle part of 2008, in the summer of 2008. And that trend continues now into the new year. While the statistics you will see in the presentation the Chief will provide very shortly shows that homicides are up by 1 homicide, 3%. The actual numbers today, if they were adjusted, show that homicides are down by 3%. Just the new numbers that we just brought in on the day actually shows them lower than last year. Nonetheless, and to the point, we are seeing Part 1 crime continue to decrease in this city. It was down double digits last year, and it's down, as you'll see in a moment, 9% this year. We're making progress. The work that the police department is doing in concert and partnership with the district attorney's office and Kamala continue to show very positive gains in terms of a reduction in crime. The stats, as always, mean nothing to the people of this city. Behind the stats are real human beings, real narratives, and real lives. And we recognize we can do more. We recognize we can do better. We recognize good enough never is. But I just want to compliment, before I ask the Chief to make the presentation and the district attorney to complete our presentation and answer any questions, I want to compliment the men and women in uniform, the men and women of law enforcement in this city. I want to compliment the partnerships with the district attorney's office and the courts. We are making tremendous progress. We are seeing stats that we haven't seen in decades in San Francisco. We're seeing a reduction in violent crime and property crimes, the likes of which we haven't seen in decades of this city. And we're doing it long-windedly with this point. We're doing it with less resources. That money has not been our excuse. We're doing it with substantially less resources than we've had in the last few decades. And that, I think, is a remarkable testament to leadership. And with that, let me give you a leader of our police department, our police chief, George Gascon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, everyone. And as the mayor indicated, this is really about people working together. It's about the police department, the mayor's office, the district attorney's office, our chief probation officer in her department, who happens to be here, and the community, certainly our federal partners. And what we're going to do today is very quickly, we're going to walk you through a PowerPoint that will illustrate what the numbers are. But I think it's important, as the mayor indicated, there are lives, there are real people behind the numbers, and I think that that is what we should be focusing on. While the numbers tell a story, the numbers really are meaningless unless we put context to the numbers and the fact that there are less people that are being victimized in our city. As a matter of fact, we were looking at a RAND study that was published a few months ago, actually at the end of 2009, where they took 3 different assessments of the cost of crime in this country, and we averaged the 3 different numbers that were provided by the studies. And looking at those numbers, if we were to compare the number of homicides that we have to date and quantify that in dollars and cents to the cost to our community and compare that to just 2 years ago, the savings are staggering. It's over $800 million in savings that this community has realized by this reduction in crime. And these things do not happen by accident. They happen because good people are working together and they're making a difference. What I'd like to do today is first we'll begin with the basis for our driving force, if you will. If you recall, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we continue to work collaboratively with our community to make San Francisco the safest, largest city in the country. And although we're not there yet, we're certainly moving in the right direction, and that is something that we want to talk about all the time. Next, I want to put the numbers up there for you so you can see just very briefly what in short 3 years' time, the reductions in crime of serious crimes in the city. As you can see, we're down 13% if we compare it to 2 years ago, and 9% when we compare it to a year ago. And again, these are year-to-date numbers. Next, just another way breaking down the crimes and looking at it at different dates. And by the way, all of you will get a copy of this PowerPoint. I'm not going to read it for you because we do have a packed agenda today, and I want to make sure that we get to some of the real important points that we want to make here today. But those numbers are there for you, and you will have access to this PowerPoint. What I'd like to do now is we have a couple of speakers that are going to come before our DA comes up and closes this portion of the press conference, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. But one number that I really like to point out to you, because there is no question that without the hard work of the men and women of this police department and their ability to work well with all the other stakeholders, crime would not be as low as it is. And one of the things that I think is really important to illustrate is how aggressively our men and women are going after violence. And this is really illustrated. If we can go to the next slide, please. The one that has the next one. Look, I think we're going perhaps backwards. I'm talking about the one that has violence reduction accomplishments, and it has the, there we go. Look at the number of firearms that have been recovered year today in the city. 787 firearms. These are crime guns. Every one of those guns has a story behind it, and they're not good stories. And this is what our men and women are confronting our streets day in and day out as we put them in the places at the time of the day in order to make sure that we reduce violence and that we reduce the likelihood of carnage in our city. And I want to make a point here because I think it's a point that, especially now that we're in the middle of an election process, is the reason why we're getting these firearms and the reason why crime is down in the city is because in addition to all the work that is being done by all the other partners, is that we in the police department have the ability to take a look historically at where crime is likely to occur, but also prospectively try to analyze based on the data that we have, very rigorous process, and put police officers where they need to be at the time that they need to be. And if we allow police deployment to be dictated by political forces, as opposed to by professionals looking at objective factors in order to make sure that the limited resources that we have are placed at the right time and the right place, we are not going to see the level of decreases that we're seeing today. This doesn't happen by accident. The 787 guns were picked up mostly because we're putting police officers in harm's way, by the way, but they are there where they need to be in order to find the people that are carrying the guns. And that is an important message that I want to make sure that we communicate to all. We have a couple of guest speakers here today, and we're going to be talking, first of all, about a program that we're very proud to be a partner of with the Drug Enforcement Administration. Okay, so we're not going to finish this first? Okay. I guess we're moving on the fly. We're going to alter the plan a little, so I'm going to put you guys for later. We're going to have our DA say a few words, and then we're going to come back to the rest of this thing, okay? The ability to be flexible.
Good. And then hopefully brief on my part. I want to applaud and thank Mayor Gavin Newsom for his leadership around this issue of public safety. It has been a process of dedication, of a smart distribution of resources, and a priority on his part, and the success is evident. I want to applaud our great Chief of Police, George Gascon, for his vision and for his ability to uniquely, because of his career as a law enforcement leader, make decisions that are in the best interest of the public safety in San Francisco. And I also want to use this opportunity to encourage everyone to support his leadership and his ability to exercise discretion and to know what is in the best interest of public safety when he makes decisions about how the resources of the police department will be used. Because clearly he knows what he's doing, and we see the results right right here in these statistics. I'm also proud of the work of my office, because the hardworking men and women of the San Francisco DA's office are responsible for the highest conviction rates that we have had in San Francisco in over 15 years. In the last few years, we have sent twice as many serious and violent felons to state prison as had occurred before. There was a charging rate for crimes that were brought to my office of around 50% when I took office, and now it is over 70%. And it is because of the important and good collaboration that is taking place between the men and women of the San Francisco District Attorney's Office and the men and women of the San Francisco Police Department. I'm proud of the work that we did earlier this year, most specifically as one example of many cases that we've been prosecuting, where in the early part of 2010, we took several, in fact 9, gang members before the grand jury. We produced over 77 witnesses that discussed the crimes that they were responsible for committing, which include murder, attempt murder, robbery, illegal possession of guns. And the grand jury returned the indictments in those cases, and those individuals are now being held accountable for their crimes. It is, again, an example of work that happens because there is the collaboration that takes place not only between the DA's office and the police department, but also our other law enforcement partners that are local, state, and federal. And so all in all, we are saying that when we are smart, as we have been as a city, in recognizing that there are many layers and at many angles at which we can approach the issue of crime and violent crime, when we collaborate around that and when we are smart with the resources that we have, though limited they may be, we see that results occur. And so with that, I want to congratulate and thank everyone, and now pass it back to the Chief to continue with his program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Okay, next, as I was indicating, fighting crime requires that you remain flexible and that you look at the various factors that influence crime, and there's no question that drug use and drug abuse is one of those areas that, quite frankly, often drives a great deal of our crime. And, you know, many people talk about drug use and drug sales as being sort of a victimless crime, and the reality is that we in law enforcement know that that is not the case, that the drugs actually drive a tremendous amount of violence. They drive a tremendous amount of all the other crimes that we deal with. And in recognition of that, we have many other partners, and one of our great partners is the Drug Enforcement Administration, and we work with them very closely. And not only do we look at illicit drugs and those that are manufactured, you know, by underground type of operations, whether it be across the border or here, but one of the problems that we have also is prescription drugs and the impact that prescription drug and the misuse of prescription drugs has in our society. And for that, I'd like to bring over to the podium, if I can have our partner from the DEA, Mr. Martin, and he's going to talk about the prescription drug operation that we have been working with and that we'll continue to. Please.
Thank you, Chief. Well, as Chief Gascon just said, last month on September 25th, the DEA, with its state and local counterparts throughout the nation, conducted its first ever nationwide prescription drug take-back program. On that day, in just a 4-hour period, we collected over 242,000 pounds of prescription drugs nationwide. And it's thanks to the overwhelming response of the public that these unused and unwanted prescription drugs that have been in people's medicine cabinets for years sometimes have now been properly disposed, and communities are safer and more likely to be drug-free. The overwhelming support we got by the public demonstrated that there's a clear need for a permanent solution to the problem of safely disposing unused and unwanted prescription drugs. And the September 25th event highlighted the value that recently passed Secure and Responsible Drug Disposal Act of 2010. The President just signed this into law yesterday, and this legislation is going to allow DEA to create a process that could take up to 18 months, but to create a process where we can turn in our prescription drugs, the unused and unwanted drugs that are sometimes in our medicine cabinets for years, and dispose of them properly on a regular basis. I guess I want to sum up by saying what Chief Gascon and our partnership that we have. On September 25th, under the Chief's leadership and with San Francisco Police Department, we were able to collect hundreds of pounds of prescription drugs throughout the city of San Francisco. And the chief set up 10 collection sites throughout the city for the community members to be able to drop off these drugs. The most collection sites of any police department, at least in the DEA San Francisco's area of responsibility, which covers all the way from Bakersfield to the Oregon border, and we really appreciate that. And the partnership that we have created with the San Francisco Police Department under Chief Gascon's leadership in fighting prescription drug abuse, because we do know it's on the rise in the country, and so we formed a partnership to really combat this serious issue. So I appreciate it, Chief Gascon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And what I'd like to do is we're going to go off order here because the mayor and Ms. Harris have a very busy schedule and they're going to have to move on. We do have one more presentation, and I would hope that you stay for it because it's about crime prevention and it's about putting out some public safety tips, so I would hope that you hang on. But prior to that, I want to open it up for some questions that you may have either from the mayor or from Ms. Harris as far as the numbers are concerned.
The district attorney, my understanding is that we've seen, I believe, an 18% increase in domestic violence abuse cases over this same period. Can you talk a little bit about how your office is working to deal with that?
Sure. It is an unfortunate truth that often when we have a downturn in the economy, we will see an increase in domestic violence cases. And to that extent, then we have to respond. And so we have been doing the work of dealing with domestic crime from a number of perspectives. One, it is around what we need to do, obviously, to prosecute those cases, and they are being prosecuted, and those abusers are being convicted. But we have also done work that is about empowering victims to hopefully avoid a crime in the future. And in particular, we just passed legislation with Senator Leland Yee that now is going to allow domestic violence victims in the state of California to have the protection of law if they are being evicted because of the noise and the damage that is caused by their abuser in an apartment that they are renting. This is groundbreaking legislation. What it will do is it will allow a domestic violence victim to avoid becoming homeless because of her victimization, and it will empower her with the law protecting her ability to maintain a home where she can live and where she can provide shelter for her family. We also brought in recently from the Department of Justice, my office brought into San Francisco $800,000 to provide for bilingual services for domestic violence victims in San Francisco. And that then will give us the resources that we need to do the outreach, in particular with our immigrant victims of domestic violence, so that they know that they can trust the system when they report crime and that we will, in fact, protect them and that there will be a consequence to their abuser. So this is all good work, and obviously recognizing that we're going to react when we have to, but we can also prevent, and in that way we can be smart.
You know, I just want to very quickly, while calls have been up, actually criminal incidents of domestic violence in the city are down year to date. Okay, the numbers are year to date. Last year there were 719 cases. Year to date this year there's 707 cases. We're actually down 2%. Okay, so I want to make sure that we get that across because we do work with the DA and we work with other stakeholders in this very closely, and we take domestic violence incidents very seriously, and especially in those places where we know that there is a history of domestic violence, we work very aggressively to run intervention and prevention efforts. And again, year-to-date numbers, aggravated assaults involving domestic violence are 719 versus 707. Now I'm talking about aggravated assaults, okay? So the numbers are down by 2%. I just want to make sure we hear the air on that. Yes.
Chief, you mentioned that there are these individual stories as well that make up each homicide and everything. And I think one of the more atrocious ones that took place this year is the death of a German tourist in the middle of Union Square.
Right.
There's no arrests. Well, there's been an arrest, but nobody's been charged. I mean, is there any update in that?
Yeah, I mean, there is. You know, we're continuing to work this case very aggressively. We believe that we know the people that are involved in this case. Obviously, we have to make sure that we put a case that is prosecutable. We still need to be able to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high standard. And we have to do so with evidence that would be admissible in court. So while we may have some very good theories of the case, and we're working this case very aggressively, we have to make sure that we put a case that would lead to a successful prosecution. This is a case that we're on it, just like we are in many other homicides. Because of the fact that homicides are also as low as they are this year, today, and last year, it's given us, for the first time in many years, the opportunity to increase the work that we do on cold cases. So actually, there's a great deal of effort that is being put forth in order to deal with homicides. Okay. Other questions from the mayor, or Ms. Harris?
Let me just, and I'll get out of everyone's way. And let me amplify something the chief said, because it's important, and to amplify a bit what the district attorney said. Let's keep this going. We're moving in the right direction. And let's not put into the hands of elected officials here at City Hall the determination of how best to deploy the resources of the San Francisco Police Department. Let's keep that in the hands of the police professionals, the police chief, the police commission. Let's not allow politics to enter into those decisions. This chief and law enforcement, in partnership with the district attorney's office, probation, and others, have proven they can get the job done. The last thing we need to do is bring it back to the hands of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to continue with a couple of presentations that are going to be very quick, but they have a tremendous amount of value for the public. And first, I'd like to bring Captain Charlie Orks from our Community Relations Unit.
Good afternoon. The San Francisco Police Department understands that it has a responsibility in educating the communities in public safety. And in this area, we understand that there is large volumes of community members in this city where English is a secondary language. Some individuals do not speak English, read, write, or understand it. So we have the task of educating them. In the department, we've come up with some policies where we have dedicated phone language lines in each district station. So if you're a victim, you can go to the station and you can talk on a three-way conversation with the officer, someone who speaks that specific language, and the victim, and they can get the crimes reported in that manner. We have signs displayed in every district station. They are 2 feet by 2 feet laminated posters, and these signs are in 7, 8 different languages, telling the community members that they have access to someone who speaks their language. It's important that the community know that they don't get the same level of service that English-speaking people do in this town. We also have things we had printed out that officers can carry in their pockets. They're pocket guides, and they also have another guide that they can give to the community, and it's in 98 different languages. And to assist the police department in our efforts, we work collaboratively with San Francisco SAFE, and at this particular time, I would like to introduce Cindy Brandon from San Francisco SAFE.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank Chief Gascon, the Mayor's Office, and the District Attorney's Office for their commitment to public safety, as well as their efforts to reduce crime and their increase in conviction rates. I'd also like to thank the community because without their knowledge and efforts in reducing crime and preventing crime, we wouldn't be where we are today. A few quick things. Some of the crimes that we're seeing today are definitely preventable. I think our role as the crime prevention partner of the police department is to educate the public on things they can do to be aware of things that will happen in the community no matter what city you live in, no matter what neighborhood you live in. Some of the crimes that we are seeing are thefts of the use of cell phones, iPods, laptop computers while in public. We encourage everybody to be alert and aware of their surroundings at all times, even if they're exiting their home or their car. A lot of times they're comfortable with their surroundings and so they're not really paying attention. So what we encourage people to do is whenever they're out in the public, just pay attention. Look around you. Notice if there are people hanging around suspiciously. Notice if there are people that are too close to you. Carry your purses and your wallets close to your body. Do not carry them in one place. We suggest to carry them at different locations on your person or in your purse. That way, if something is stolen, your whole world in your purse or your wallet is not taken away at once. We encourage people to report suspicious activities to the police at all times. Calling 911 or non-emergency will definitely get a police response. Also, another crime that we are seeing is car break-ins or auto boostings. People leave items in their cars that are visible. So we encourage people to not leave anything visible in your car at all times. Never leave anything visible, including a jacket or a shopping bag. As we approach the holiday season, people tend to leave their shopping bags or their coats in their back seat of their vehicle. Please do not leave anything visible in your car. If you need to put something in your trunk, please do so before you arrive at your destination. That way people will not know that something is in your trunk. A lot of these crimes are crimes of opportunity, so we would like to educate the public on safety tips that include being aware of your surroundings, knowing how not to become a victim, reducing the amounts of incidents that occur when people are careless when they flash their wallet at an ATM in the dark, or they're walking down a dark alleyway that's not lit late at night. Just practice safe habits. And I think with the public learning all of these things, especially as we're entering into the holiday season, we can help contribute to the reduction of crime in our city. So please pass on some of these safety tips. We do have more information on our website, and with the police department, it's sfsafe.org. And we're a tremendous asset to the community, so please pass this on and learn how to help others be aware of their surroundings and help prevent crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And before we reopen this for question and answer, I'd like to give the opportunity to the Vice President of the Police Commission to say a few words. Mr. Thomas Uken.
Thank you, Chief. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Newsom for having the foresight and the courage to hire a true policing professional by bringing Chief Gascon to San Francisco. He's raised the level of professionalism, and we recognize that as a police commission, so thank you for your hard work. Also, I'd like to thank the members of the San Francisco Police Department, the men and women who do this job every day. We as police commissioners are the liaison between the community and the police department. And we see what goes on out there in the street. And I have to tell you, I just left a Medal of Valor award ceremony. It wasn't a ceremony, it was where everybody gets together and decide what the medal will be. The chief talks about guns coming off the street, violent crime guns. We saw 2 awards where officers took away a gun from somebody immediately after a homicide, right there on the spot. They had the courage and the fortitude to go up and take the gun away. It's very impressive. We had some young officers that work at our housing task force out in the middle of the housing projects who chased somebody down and took him out at gunpoint who was carrying an AK-47 with 30 rounds in the clip. That makes you proud to be a member of this police commission and a member of this city, because our officers are doing the job out there. Those guns came off the street and those people are in custody. So I want to thank the officers for their hard work. I want to thank the mayor, and I really want to thank Chief Gascon. He's done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we can reopen for any questions that you may have. Yes?
Chief, so my understanding is that violent and property crime are down for the year, but can you talk a little bit about some of the neighborhoods in particular that have been a little more trouble? My understanding is the Mission has seen a number of shootings more than it has in previous years. We're also seeing more car robberies in the Tenderloin district as well.
Well, unquestionably, crime moves around, and sometimes you put resources in one place and you move it to another area. And there are neighborhoods that we have seen some concerning trends, and we put a great deal of attention. Some of you may recall that actually earlier in the year, we started to have a spike in robberies. Year-to-date, robberies are now down again. As a matter of fact, as of the last week, we're down 7% when compared to the same time year-to-date. At the beginning of the year, we were having, in fact, those of you that really follow the statistics as closely as I do, will remember that at the beginning of the year, actually, robberies were inching up. And again, there was a great deal of brainstorming that went on, a lot of people working together, doing a lot of analytical work as to who the suspects were, who the victims were, where were those things occurring, and a lot of efforts were put together, and that was turned around. So while there is no question that there are places that we are having issues, and there are certain neighborhoods that we need to continue to pay attention to, the overall trend is a good trend. The reality is that the ideal society that there will be no crime is very unlikely to occur, especially in an urban environment. So we know that there are always going to be areas that we're going to have issues. The question is not whether we have the issues or not, but what do we do in order to avoid that or prevent it. one of the reasons why I wanted San Francisco Safe to come in and Cindy to talk about it is because the best way to reduce crime is by preventing crime in the first place. And the best way to prevent crime is not even by arresting a suspect, but quite frankly is by taking the opportunity from the crime to occur in the first place. There are a lot of things, and most of them are bad, that occur when a crime occurs. If you leave an item unattended in your vehicle, and a young person, let's say a 16, 17-year-old, sees that computer there that looks very attractive, and he or she breaks the window in order to steal that computer, what you're doing is several things. Number one, you're going to be out your computer more than likely. And that's going to increase your insurance, and it's going to increase the level of fear in that community. But the other thing that is occurring too is that all of a sudden we have a young person that eventually will be arrested, if not for that crime, for another crime, and now you have a person that now is in the system as a criminal, and his or her likelihood of being able to succeed as they grow old, it diminishes significantly once they engage in crime. So when we're preventing crimes, not only are we doing ourselves a favor and our community, but we're also helping a lot of young people that often they're tempted to commit a crime that if we perhaps were more thoughtful about removing the opportunity, that would not occur. So one of the things that we talk in our communities in San Francisco Safe does with us is very assertively talking to people about how to avoid becoming the victim, because there's just a whole bunch of things that occur once that crime takes place that impact everyone, including the lives of those that are actually committing the crime. Any other questions?
Budget difficulties, how that may impact your department staffing in the future years. Any update on that, or any what specific areas of crime do you foresee this being an issue for?
Well, I mean, we're evaluating this on a daily basis. I think that most of you, again, those of you that follow the numbers very closely, you know that we have in the last 18 months or so, we've had a tremendous reduction in overtime. This department has gone from general funded overtime. And I know that it's nuanced and it's confusing, but there are different pockets of overtime. There's one where the officers get paid by merchants to work in their off-duty time. And you often see that on the report of the controller. That is not tax-based overtime. And then there's the general funded overtime, which is what the taxpayers pay. That amount has gone from nearly $23 million just 2 years ago to right around $5 million this year. When you compute the numbers, that is equivalent to about 115 police officers that are not here today that were here just 2 years ago. So if you take that number and you say, okay, we have reduced already about 115 officers by that reduction in overtime, and then in addition to that, you put that on the backdrop that we, through the budgetary process, agreed to attrit or reduce the size of our force by another 78 officers, you can see the math very quickly gets to the point that we are approaching very rapidly to the point where we're going to have about 200 officers less available to deal with crime problems. 115 that come from the reduction in overtime, and 78 that will simply be people that will be leaving that will not be replaced. That is nearly 10% of our workforce. That is why it's so important for the community to understand that the deployment of police officers really needs to be left up to us, because we're putting people where they need to be. You cannot, on a static fashion, deploy police officers in a footbeat just because it's nice to have them there, if their crime in that area doesn't call for it. We do not have the luxury of doing so today, and it's less likely that we'll have the luxury to do so in the next years. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.